now and share the screen again. Yeah, so 6 speakers are going to speak. Our theme is women in coaching. The format we're going to follow, I'm going to introduce one speaker, stop sharing my screen and give control to the speaker. Yeah, so stay tight. It's going to be 10 minutes, one by one. First one, please put your hands together. Latha Gupta. She's a founder of an outfit called Odi Mantra, our own member. Let me put people on mute. Chakor, can you be on mute, please? A brief about Latha. 28 years experience in OD, working with global companies, including board positions. Founder of OD Mantra, boutique consulting, coaching and leadership development firm. She's an ICF coach, ICF accredited coach. She leads workshop and coaching that nurtures specific needs of women leader, rooted in her experience of shattering some glass ceiling her own career with companies such as NIIT, American Express, RBS, ABN AMRO Bank, Metro, EG. We have heard Latha. Last year, she was a speaker from International Yoga Day. But today, she's going to speak on the topic of nurturing feminine intelligence in coaching. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Latha. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And Latha, I have given permission you to share your screen. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Namaste to everyone. So yeah, it's a nice occasion to focus on the feminine aspects of coaching, which is my topic today. And I'll just take a moment to share my screen. And
we can see it.
So thanks for that, Vivek. And thanks for that lovely introduction. So you know about me and my work, so I'll jump in straight. I happen to, over these 25, 26 years that I spent in the corporate world, have a front row seat to the whole aspect of feminine intelligence in a workspace, and in terms of how it is it can be a strength, and where when it is not honored, it can be a struggle. So that's really the perspective I come from. And my objective is that, I'm sure you're all tuned into this already, but just as for us as coaches, to make that little effort to open that window into people's minds of nurturing and growing feminine intelligence as we coach our coachees. So that's really the goal for my little sharing with you today. So before we jump into more of this, I thought it's good to just make sure we're all on the same page. You've all heard about it. What is feminine intelligence? So this is something which is there both in men and women. So it's not like only women have feminine intelligence. Some of the key elements of feminine intelligence is a good intuition. And you would see this in your very social context also, like your mom or your wife saying, I have a hunch. And a lot of times we say, you always have that hunch. But many a time, it actually happens. They guess something and it comes true. It's a sixth sense. You can't touch it. You can't define it. You can't see it clearly. But that's an innate sense that people have of where are things likely to go, or kind of foreseeing what's likely to happen. And that happens because they also have a broader vision. And I'll come to the subject of vision in my next slide in a short while. Context is another important element for the feminine intelligence. And you'll see this typically in a corporate world when you see a woman starting a presentation more prominently, you notice this, they spend a lot of time on context, whereas men tend to jump straight into the topic. And when women spend a lot of time on context, you often find men getting disconnected. What's all this hoo-ha about? Why can't she come straight into the point? It's unfair to box them and categorize them and saying this is how all men behave or all women behave. But I'm just basing this on some good research that has happened over the years on some of these tendencies or default settings that women have, which you will notice as you go along when you start to look for it. The other element is self-awareness. Very briefly, if we were to touch on the topic of self-awareness, what is it? It is about being aware of how I as a person come across, what kind of perceptions and impressions I create, and how am I experienced by those who I am interacting with. Just being aware of that the feminine side tend to be more aware and sometimes go to the extreme of being more shy and conscious about it, and therefore try to get into traps like the perfection trap, for example. So that's another aspect of self-awareness there. Emotion. Someone needs to be on mute. Sorry. Yeah. So emotions, again, we tend to associate it with women, but it's not like it's only women who have emotions, but probably they tend to express it more than men. And many of us grew up with this saying that men don't cry, for example. So you kind of taught to bottle it all up. But here in this world where we are up against so many challenges, maybe this is the time to acknowledge emotions, create space for that, and work with it, more importantly, rather than, to borrow a phrase from Susan, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, to not bottle and brood those emotions, but rather express and process them and find ways for our coaches to do that. A lot of times you'll find this coming up in these sessions. The other aspect is nurturing relationships, and we all understand this, that the female side of looking at things is from a perspective of nurturing. It's part of motherhood, it is a part of sisterhood. You remember all those people in your lives who tend to have a style of taking care, nurturing, tuning into emotions and feelings of others. So that's another important aspect of feminine intelligence. They crave for balance. So again, research says this, that while men care more for the kind of opportunities and work that is coming, and therefore the money and recognition that comes, whereas women look for the experience and they look for balancing work and family, for
So
example.
this Sonali se session attend करते
Vivek, is it possible for you to
So,
mute
yeah.
participants? Thank you so much.
Okay, Latha, I'm going to mute all, and then you please unmute yourself.
I'll do that. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Vivek. So the other aspect is balance, and this is more in this pandemic, we've seen this whole situation of women tending to have a larger share of taking care of people, household responsibilities, etc., and that need for balance. But we're seeing that for a family to run well and for the health of relationships, more so because of the proximity that families are in right now, it is important for men also to seek that balance, acknowledge that, and balance it in between their work and life. Harmony is something that typically is, again, a feminine quality, seeking that more, whereas on the masculine side, it's more about stating things as they are and accepting it and moving on. And there's this element of seeking and giving feedback, which is, again, more prominent on the feminine side. So these are some aspects of feminine intelligence. Now, this is a 10-minute session, so I'm going to move super fast and move to the next. Sorry. So I just thought pick up one or two elements and elaborate that. So the female vision. Yeah, and this book, How Women Rise, Sally Helgeson and Martian Goldsmith wrote, which was a follow-up to What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which was more focused on the masculine side of things. There they elaborate this aspect of feminine vision. And so if I had to really condense and crisp it out, what they explain is the women tend to see things from a broader perspective. Yeah, so it's like a radar view. So you see, you notice people's emotions, you notice people's expressions, you notice what is said, you hear what is not said, you're able to tune into all of that. Whereas men tend to have more like a razor focus. Yeah, so they focus on one thing, they're 100% there, no distractions, and then they move to the next thing. This has been researched, and neuroscience has proven that this is indeed the case. And the study was done by Columbia, Yale, and Harvard that came together to do this study of men versus women neurologically. How does the brain work? And this was one of the prominent things that came out. So when we work with our coaches, we have to be mindful of how women tend to struggle with it sometimes because they're not honored for having that kind of a vision, because it's like, just get to the point. And B, when we are coaching men, maybe this is a quality that we need more and more in a very VUCA environment where everything is interconnected, and the whole tragedies that are happening in business and workplaces need that broader perspective, and which is where female vision becomes very, very important. So I'll leave it at that. You could read up more in the book How Women Rise. The other aspect again is web versus ladder. Now, men tend, because they are very focused and they have been in workplaces way longer, they tend to focus more on structures and how growth happens in a very hierarchical way. And that's what's been handed out to us in the corporate world from the whole perspective of the industrial age, where somebody made a decision, everybody else followed. Whereas the way women are wired and how their intelligence works is more like a web. So they don't like so much of this boxed hierarchy, but they believe in interconnections and a web, like the web of life, where everything is connected. Now, here again, when the world is becoming a smaller and smaller place right from our homes, this whole skill becomes very important to see things 360-degree view as well as manage those interconnections well. So that's another important aspect and something that's distinct between the web and ladder and the two ways of looking at it. And this is something that feminine intelligence predominates on. So that's another thing to watch out for in your coaches. Now, very quickly coming into, okay, so here are some distinct aspects. There are many more, but how do we nurture feminine intelligence, whether a coach is a man or a woman? Yeah. So it goes back to some of our age-old coaching skills, but looking at it in the context of all of these elements of feminine intelligence. There would be some hurdles to be crossed. Yeah. So any new way of thinking will have some resistances. So our job as coaches a lot of our work is going to be around inspiring enthusiasm, spending time on ideating possibilities, and then inculcating that commitment once they buy into the fact that, hey, yeah, the world is changing and some of these qualities are going to be center stage for leadership and growth. So what do I need to do differently? And how am I going to work with that? And these things take longer time, but our job as coaches is to hold that space where some commitment is being inculcated and install an action plan which is followed through. So I was just trying to look at, what could be some steps. It's pretty much like how we've been doing coaching in the past, but very consciously looking at this element and working with it in our businesses as coaches and with our people. So I wanted to leave you with some food for thought as a coach ourselves. What does this mean? So all this change has happened. There is a greater focus on interconnectedness and the feminine aspects. What does it mean? I need to examine, is my coaching more holistic? Is it looking at both sides, the feminine and the masculine, the yin and the yang, going all the way back to the Jungian philosophy of anima and animus? How are these elements getting incorporated in my coaching? How do I make my coaching more focused on the human needs and all of those so-called soft skills, which have now become hard in this new world of leadership? The other thing to reflect upon is, how has my coaching evolved and adapted to these times? Yeah. So what have I shifted in the last 12 months, and what do I need to shift in the coming months to really stay on top of my game? That could be something for us as coaches. And how do I myself balance and renew myself? Because coaches are at the receiving end of a lot of anxiety, which is at an all-time high. People are insecure about their jobs. People are insecure about the perceptions they create and all of that. So how do I balance and renew myself so that I turn up 100% for my clients is something that we need to reflect on. One of the things I personally do is I've been fortunate to be with meditation for a long time and bring in elements of mindfulness into my practice, which is benefiting my coaches a lot. Now, you might have your own tools. So look for what is it that I can bring in order to have more balance and renew myself. And with that, I leave you with this closing thought, which is from this book, The Future of Coaching by Hetty Einzig. And many of you might know Hetty. There are a couple of good talks on the YouTube. She did a lot of work with John Whitmore and was on the forefront of setting up coaching over the years. She's also a professional psychotherapist. And I like this perspective where she says, coaching is now needed more than ever. Essentially, our task as coaches is to hospice the old So hospice as in the place where people go when they are passing from this world to the next, and midwife the new, helping leaders breathe life into imagined futures. So that's really where we need to go with nurturing feminine intelligence. So on that note, I hand it back to Vivek. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Latha, for that speed. Thank you for taking the time. Let me just share my screen again. Thank you so much. And okay. All right, that was our first speaker. I hope all of you are making notes. We're going to record this and put on YouTube later. The next speaker, please welcome Gauri Kacherikar, a business coach. We met Gauri last year. She was introduced to us last year, ICW. She hosted one of the sessions. Brief about Gauri, I think she presented her introduction in 3 parts. Value for business, value for people, and value for society. Value for business, a people person, insightful global leader with a strong business acumen, extensive experience in leading global teams. Value for people, mission as a business coach is to empower women to grow as a successful entrepreneur. I think I'm looking forward to listen more on this from Gauri. And value for society, a catalyst to gender diversity in society. Very interesting stuff in our profile. And the topic Gauri is going to talk today about learnings and experiences as a woman coach. Yeah, so Gauri, hearty welcome again. I'm going to stop share and all yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vivek, for a great introduction. And I would like to welcome all of you, and I invite you to put in your thoughts. Basically, all of us have been through some kind of change or some kind of transformation, and last year has been full of that. So I request all of you to put in one-liner, one word, whatever you feel that's going on your mind when you think of any kind of big change or a big transformation. Okay, and great. Let's see what's coming here then. Okay, growth, great. Fear, resistance, excitement, acceptance, fitness, abundance, yes, resilience, adaptability. Okay, I think yes. So I want to start a little bit with the last year where I got in an opportunity to be a part of a huge transformation program. I'm going to call, due to the NDA disclosure clauses that I have, so I'm not allowed to share the name of the customers, but all I can say is that this has been one of the leading paper producers in the Nordic with their operations spread across the globe. So I'm going to call them as Sun Systems. And this Sun Systems had their IT contracts with 2 different vendors. And I'm going to call them as Venus and Jupiter. Just as the names signify, I think you can imagine the size and the volume of each of these people. And when we talk about this Sun, Venus and Jupiter and this story, so Venus and Jupiter had been doing an excellent job with their IT services that they have been provided to the Sun Systems. And in their individual capacity, they were just excellent. However, the challenge that Sun System had was they had to always resolve conflicts between Venus and Jupiter. And this was extremely time consuming. It was a great business loss, and Sun Systems was just kind of, not able to use their power as they could have. So Sun System came up with an idea and thought that why don't I kind of, make Venus and Jupiter as partners? Yeah. What this meant for Venus and Jupiter organizations was that coming under one roof, being partners, cooperating, leaving their hats behind, shedding their inhibitions and working together. And that's when this entire transformation journey started. So when, as we all know that Venus and Jupiter are in their own orbits and have their own kind of, auras and their own kind of personalities, so to say. So when Sun System launched this idea, initially it was definitely not acceptable to Venus and Jupiter, and they reacted that no, this is not possible. You're asking too much on, this is not going to work. So Sun System said, fine, if it's not going to work with both of you, then I need to kind of, find some more options. And Venus and Jupiter realized that they're going to lose their light and they're going to lose their complete source of whatever has been their best thing. So they kind of, called each other and said, hey, could we give it a try? And let's try to see what Sun System has to say, and let's come together. So all of them decided to meet, and then when they met, what they decided is that if we have to kind of put in this ecosystem together where we can collaborate, cooperate, and kind of communicate really very well. This is definitely going to be one of its first kind of example, because as we know that when the planets are in their own orbits, we have hardly heard about the planets coming together in one single orbit and kind of cooperating so much well. But yes, this is going to be setting a different trend and a different path altogether, is what everybody agreed. But how to go about it? So the first thing that they invited is an coaching company which kind of help them to put things together. So when it comes to any kind of transformation, they decided that real transformations happen only if there is honesty. They came together to discuss and say that really practically is it possible, feasible, all those things. And the coaching company assisted them very nicely with three things: to bring in clarity, to focus on their energy by channelizing it, and whatever energy comes out of it, the third aspect is energy, which will be then motivating for the others to follow and lead that. So all this was agreed, and in February they did a big bang and launch, and they invited all the others. Uh, when we talk about the size of volume of the employees that were there in these three organizations, it was approximately 1,500 people who would be impacted with this kind of a change. So that was huge. And then they felt that we need definitely to have a communication and change manager who will take care of, the most of the aspects that are needed, because as we know that in any kind of change, communication is an integral part of it. And of course, when we talk about any kind of change, then coaching is also one part of it that is there. And when they decided to have this communication and change manager on board, the criteria that they put is that they would definitely like to have a woman leader who could act as a coach and a mentor and a change manager. And just as we heard from Latha, the web versus the ladder part. So that was exactly the thought that they had in mind when they thought of having a woman coach on board. But somehow this was, not really very transparent to the others. And then I was approached to take up this role from the Jupiter systems to be the communication and change manager. And I was told that the Sun system has been very particular about having a woman leader as a part of this role. With my natural instinct and always thinking about diversity and why all that things, I was very curious to find out, why women as a coach. So I kind of had that opportunity to ask them very directly that what is it that you are looking out for? And one thing, the biggest program owner said that, what I'm looking out for is when the winds do not show her way, she changed the sails. Did not show her way, she changed the sails. And this is a very nice quote by Elizabeth Edward. And if you happen to read Elizabeth Edward's story, you will know that, why did she quote. So she really goes through a lot of challenges, lot of things and lot of hurdles that come up. So that was told to me that this is what is going to come your way as a part of this transformation. Nothing is going to be straightforward. Everything has to be kind of, thought of. You will have to find your own paths and ways and things like that. Okay, so I was put on a spot. I was definitely happy to be a part of this huge transformation, but the reality was that I had never ever done such a big transformation program before. So I came back, and when this idea was shared from the strategic team to the first senior level management folks, as usual, everybody started reacting and saying, hey, this is not possible. I think those guys have lost their mind, they did a good job in selling, but practically, as we know, that when it comes to delivering anything on grassroots level, this is not going to work. So that was the tone when I started, and I knew that, there are a heap full of challenges all my way. So I came back and I kind of, tried to scratch my head and started to think that, have I really been through such kind of a change or transformation in my personal life? And what is it that, I can relate, correlate, anything that could give me a kind of, uh, a little bit of light, so that I could plan certain things that are there. Uh, what I could think of is, and I'm sure that most of you will agree with me, that if you have been changing places and you have been changing houses, so that change is something that takes a real long time, and it takes a long time. It impacts everybody, and I can assure you that, it creates a lot of discomfort. So I started thinking that, what is it that happens? So it's all about packing your boxes first, going to your new place, unpacking your boxes, and then figuring out, what really fits where. And after that, that's not just that part as well. So when I shifted my place, and not only just place and city as well, I realized that my son had to change his school as well. And that was a complete new environment for him, where he had no friends, I had no friends. We were completely new in the city. And I just tried to jot down everything that came by me. While going through all these things, John Cotter has been my friend. And if any of you have read John Cotter's fable as well as his change management model, I'm sure that you will love it, because his fable talks about uh, a bunch of penguins where the iceberg is melting, and how this colony of penguins has to relocate together, and how they come together, and how there is a character called as Alice and Fred, and how they really try to drive in and make everybody comfortable. And that's what I thought is on my hands when I have to do this with my team together. So that's where it started, by definitely talking to teams. First is that I realized that this is a big monstrous task, and I need to really have some more coaches like me who can, really influence the team, motivate the team, and make them believe that this is going to happen. So we started by some kind of laser coaching. Group coaching, of course, was one of the key part to this entire thing. And as a part of this, it was also talking about a lot of anabolic energy, catabolic energy, limiting beliefs. So all this was done. We allowed the team to voice on their limiting beliefs, and also came up with a plan to kind of address, what are the wanted beliefs to make this happen. But as we know that, things don't go the way we plan to do so. And that's where things started, the crisis situation. Um, and then I understood that why they wanted a woman leader, because I think when it comes to crisis, we are the best crisis managers in our house, in our places, wherever we are. We're also empathetic, we are great listeners. And I think, as Latha also rightly pointed out, we're full of emotions and feelings. And this kind of a change really needed that aspect of understanding the people's emotions, feelings, being empathetic listeners, and kind of being guiding lights to them. And that I felt was my strength of being a woman coach, which was definitely used in this entire program. What I learned out of this entire great transformation, I think it was a transformation for me and myself. I could recollect all the core coaching competencies and most of the things whenever I was doing a lot of things with that. But it also so when I try to resonate my feelings with it, I think what comes out of this is uh, how do we kind of engage and enable people? How do we create a climate for the change? And it's not just about that, but it's also about setting realistic goals, taking the risks that you can take, and seeing a little bit outside yourself. So that's what I have learned from this. And I believe that I'm sure all of you have your own experiences too. Thank you. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, Jayashree, are you there? Jayashree, is there an International Men's Day where we can present what strengths we have, boys?
There is an international.
I suddenly feel
19th
like,
November.
we lack so many things.
No,
Vivek, I want
International
to take back
19th
1 minute.
November.
Yeah. Yeah, Gauri.
Sorry, I want to take back that 1 minute where, when we were in that session where we were discussing this and Vivek exactly asked the same question.
Yeah.
Iska matlab, there is no need to have men coaches. So I think, Vivek, I think Latha has answered your question of the feminine intelligence. So as long as...
No, I have a concern now. The next 4 speakers, what are they going to think? And after 90 minutes, what is the mindset I'm going to leave session with? But I'm hopeful. So request to next speakers, थोड़ा हमारे बारे में भी अच्छा बात करो.
But there is International Men's Day, Vivek. We're going to celebrate it in the chapter.
Yeah. So all boys who are on the call, start preparing. Yeah, Vinita, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was just giving the date, 19th November.
Yeah.
I remember it. I didn't have to Google it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gauri, for that. Our next speaker is Sushma Kulkarni. She's an executive coach. Her last assignment was Vice President, Head India Geography for Zensar. She's a PCC coach, credentialed by ICF. And she is, working on a GAP project. I think the only project, only NGO project in, I think, Indian chapters are handling. Coaching in social sector, change makers through global action against poverty. She's one of the coach on the GAP, led by ICF Pune GC. She's a OD practitioner certification from ISABS, and also she's a certified assessor. Today, I'm going to interview her on the topic of strengths a woman coach bring in, right? So you're going to listen conversation between Vivek and Sushma on the topic of strengths woman coach bring in. Let me check where Sushma is. Sushma, are you ready? So let me just put Sushma under spotlight. Sushma, hi.
Hi.
Yes. Can
you
I start
hear?
my? Yes. So, since Gauri has talked too much of the strengths woman coach bring in, I'm not going to start with that question. I'm going to start with something else. I think that women's having multiple strengths. Let me start with that. And what is the role that woman coach can play to coach a woman in work life? I think that is the one thing I would like to start with.
So what? A good question, Vivek. Women have their unique and multiple strengths. We have the ability to collaborate, to be intuitive. We are sensitive. We are able to emote overtly. We are able to express our emotions very overtly. And today in the workforce, the talent pool, there's a huge talent pool that comprises of women. And enabling women, is going to be of competitive advantage to any organization in the workplace, right? So a woman is very well or best suited to understand a woman, the challenges that another woman could be facing in terms of managing both the domestic challenges along with work-life challenges, along with parenting, along with maybe health issues. So a woman coach can be, able to coach women to break the glass ceiling, to overcome these challenges, and to be a very strong part of the workforce today, which is really a strong business case in itself. It's important that women come up, and women can play a very strong role. Women coaches can play a very strong role in that sense to actually uplift the economy itself. So a very good question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And now as we talk this women to women connection, is there a separate connection on when we talk on building, leadership teams? Because I think boys and girls will be, or coaches could be equally competent. Do you have any bias in that area as well?
Yes. Yes, I do agree that men coaches are competent, equally competent. There's no there's no difference there of opinion. However, women, because of certain strengths, can really play very active role in building leadership. First and foremost, because we are by nature inclusive, we are collaborative. You see, it is important even that the men get coached, whether by a woman or by a man itself, to include women in their leadership teams. So that also requires a change of mindset. You know, because for generations, you having the top leadership with only the men, and now they're going to be women participants. So to be able to include them, to be able to respect their perspective, and to be able to come up with a robust solutions with all perspectives put together, to form teams which are going to be productive, where there's going to be a balanced leadership. There's going to be a leadership, a gender balanced leadership. In all this, women would really play a strong role because of their intrinsic qualities to be able to collaborate, to be inclusive, to ensure participation. So all that goes a long way in helping build leadership teams.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know we have invited Vinita to bring the industry perspective. I'm just going to take a shot here, Sushma. Any example from your earlier corporate career? Like, you know, your Zensar case, where you
I didn't get you here. I did not, okay. I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I'm saying we have invited Vinita to bring in the corporate or industry perspective, but I'm just going to take a shot. In your earlier experience of corporate career, this inclusive leadership or using women coaches to build leadership, can you share one or two instances from there? How did that help?
Yes,
if you used it,
because what happens is, first and foremost, you know, most women after mid-management, they tend to drop out. So when you're looking at even increasing the gender ratio right up to the top, interventions also need to be created to understand why women are dropping out, and what mechanism that can be put in place so that, you know, they stay in the organization, or they come back into the organization from mid-level onwards itself. And also as they you know, start staying in the organization, what is it that is needed so that they are able to prove themselves? There is meritocracy, and they're able to prove themselves despite maybe some work-life challenges, or whatever challenges may be at home. What is the focus that they need to, so that they're able to rise after proving themselves? So these are the interventions that are also necessary to be able to have a workforce that is inclusive of women. Okay, and not only that, even when there is a meeting of both women and men, there is that level of sensitivity. You know, there's a kind of talk that can happen when there's only an all women you know, all women team, whereas when there is a woman in the team, there is whether it's in terms of language, in terms of body language, it has to be something that is going to be, you know, acceptable to the woman as well. And then together the man and woman, the men and the women in the team are able to, you know, come up with highly productive results. So yes, that has been my experience in Zensar as well.
Okay, thank you. See, Sushma, you know, diversity and inclusion, it's a very hot topic, and it was yesterday, it is today, and it will be tomorrow as well. Again, you know, do you have any specific views about the role a woman coach can play in this agendas big companies have on diversity and inclusion? I've heard some companies have, like, as a KRA or HR manager saying, you know, move from a 10% to 20%. That's one, and I think everybody has his own interpretation of what diversity and inclusion is all about. So what's your view on it?
Yes. Yeah, so my view is women to help build diversity. Is that your question?
Yeah. As women coach,
women coaches.
What is the role they play in this diversity and inclusion?
Right. So, see, women, as Latha mentioned, and subsequently Gauri, we have some strengths which most women, you know, are able to demonstrate. One is that, you know, we are able to show our emotion very easily. We are quite overt with our emotion. We are sensitive towards people, and we are able to collaborate. We are able to, you know, be sensitive, be balanced, be harmonious. So what happens is with these qualities, the coaching process so that the organization is able to build diversity. That is what, that you have, you could have a gender diversity, you could have special people, different skills, diversity of all kinds. And what typically happens is when you're trying to build diversity, the groups that are smaller, they don't get, they may be there in the organization, but the groups that are smaller, they don't tend to participate as much as the larger groups, you see. So the inclusivity angle is very important, that even the smallest group, it could be a specially able group, or it could be a group with a particular kind of skill set, which is not the, you know, the major skill set, they are able to contribute and participate just like everybody else, and they are welcomed, and they feel that they have a safe space to participate. So women by nature, because we tend to nurture, we are sensitive, we are collaborative, we are inclusive by nature, women tend to then add a lot of value to the coaching process to build diversity and inclusion. That's my experience.
Wow, wow, thank you. Chakor also is mentioning women have patience. Yeah, Chakor, thank you for that. Sushma, last question from my side is, you know, we had got Mugda a while ago talking about social sector, impact of coaching in social sector. I think that was a very nice session.
Yeah.
What's your view on, you know, how women coaches can contribute to, you know, this social sector part?
Yeah. So again, here there's no comparison between men and women, but I'm just trying to bring out what qualities of the women enable the you know, coaching in say social sector. Women by nature, I think, are very people oriented. We are they form deep friendships. We are able to be humble. You know, humility is one of the strengths that women have, patience, and also we are able to connect, you know, at any level. So in the social setup, when there are women coaches, these intrinsic qualities come into play, and we are able to get the coaches to uplift to get the coachees in the social sector to uplift the community, you know. So the community upliftment as a result of the qualities that women have and the experience and education that women have to be able to coach greatly enables the social sector. So those are, I mean, that's my view on this.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. Sushma, I think people are inspired by your talk, and there are a lot of interesting messages on chat. You can have a look at that later. Sushma, last 30 seconds. You want to have a closing remark to your session? 30 seconds more. Any comments from your side to close the session?
So I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, speaking for women's on Women's Day, there's a lot of potential that women have. And when I say a lot of potential that women have, there's a lot of potential women have to work together with men. You see, it's not ever going to be a case of excluding men. Then everything fails. And when we're talking of inclusion, it's going to be inclusive of everything. So when you have a balanced leadership, there's going to be a lot of scope to come up with quantum leaps in what the organization or an individual might want to achieve. So women have a long way to go as well. We need to educate ourselves further. We need to build our skills, and we need to become, you know, more conscious of what we can do. There's a lot of scope for men and women to work together. That's my closing remark.
As we do in GC, yeah, along with Jayashri. Thank you so much, Sushma. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
I like your passion as well. I just want to tell everybody who's on the call today, this session is slightly special. I'm calling it as a family session, since all the speakers today you hear on the call are from Pune chapter. Like, while Vinita is an invitee, but her unofficial membership ID belongs to this chapter. Right? So it's a very special moment for all of us. Let me share my screen again and introduce the next speaker. Yes, next one is Sonali Nambiar. Sonali, I hope you're ready. She's an executive coach. A quick introduction. A varied experience in the space of executive coaching across diverse range of industries. She uses different methodologies, NLP, NVC, nonviolent communication, and EI, emotional intelligence. She loves to spend her free time traveling, reading, and including in various water-based activities, snorkeling, diving, river rafting, waterfall rafting. This part I did not know about Sonali. And today she's going to talk about challenges and advantages of being a woman coach. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Welcome Sonali. And let me put spotlight on Sonali. Sonali, all yours, 10 minutes. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you, Sushma, Gauri, and Latha for wonderful insights. And the first thing that I realize is that I should have gone first. There are many things that are now crossed out of my talk, so it's going to be a free format from here, which we are used to doing as coaches, as trainers. So let me start by saying that when I looked at all the topics that were there, most of the topics were taken up for this today's presentation. And I came across a topic which said advantages and disadvantages of being a woman coach. And my first reaction was, oh, woman coach. I'd never thought of myself as a woman coach. I'm a coach. That's about it. This is the first time I've seen it put it like that. And then I said, hey, I mean, I don't identify with this. I've never thought of it like this. So I'm probably not the right person to do this topic at all. Then I thought a bit more and I thought maybe this is a blind spot. I need to really explore it. And that's what I spent a week doing. I kept thinking back, all right, so how has it been disadvantageous as a woman coach or being a woman? So I have 10 plus years of coaching in a variety of industries, not just software where the ratio of women is far larger, but manufacturing, advertising, BFSI, everywhere. And I just couldn't come across anything. And yeah, were there challenges? Absolutely. Is it still a patriarchy out there? Yes. Ratio of women to men, very skewed. But I never put a term to those challenges as being a disadvantage, being a woman. And then I thought some more. I said, I've even been in an organization, not just a consultant. For example, last year I played the role of a L&D head where I was coaching at the CXO level and the senior management level to bring about a cultural transformation. Was it challenging? 100%. Was I the only woman in the entire CXO level? Absolutely. But was it because I was a woman? I don't think so. So then I thought maybe I should speak about this and ask ourselves, because I work a lot in diversity and inclusion also, especially to do with women leadership. And the thing that I come across all the time is that women stop themselves before others can stop them. We have a lot of self-limiting beliefs. And we go into, I've never walked into an organization thinking I'm a woman coach and I might have a challenge or a woman facilitator or anything. So for example, take a look at Jayashree. I mean, I always watch Jayashree. She has the same way of talking to the men, women, bantering, teasing, everybody knows that she's working from a place of expertise. And I think that's what counts. How do you walk in? How do you say that, yeah, sure, you might be the CXO, CEO, they're all men in the room. And I have my own expertise too, which will complement and which will help you, enable you to go from place A to place B. And that's my expertise. So let me give you an example. Let me tell you a story, since most of my talk has been done away with. And let me tell you where I got it from. So I've been very lucky to have very strong women role models. And when I mean strong, I don't mean strong as in masculine energy, feminine energy, but strong. I believe women are far more resilient. And this was a fact. I was talking to a gynecologist the other day, and they said that the pain threshold of men is around, they said 6. After that, they black out. The pain threshold of women going through labor is 7.5, 8. So when I talk about strength, it's not denying our masculine, feminine energy. We have different strengths. And so I have my mother, who became an entrepreneur at the age of 60 and started a huge business. never thinking, okay, I mean, yeah, she just did it. And then I would like to talk about Leela Punawala. So Leela Punawala is a mentor, and she's been a guide, a mentor at an earlier leadership institute that I worked at. And if you're from Pune and you don't know about Leela Punawala, you must read about her. Very inspiring. So she was the first woman mechanical engineer from COEP Pune. And she got her first job at Alfa Laval. When she left Alfa Laval, she left as the CEO. So when she went in as a mechanical engineer, they didn't know what to do with her. There's a woman, there are men everywhere. There's no women's toilet either separately. So they said, Acha, do one thing, you look after the garden. So she didn't take it in a way that, she wasn't offended or anything. She said, okay, challenge, you're giving me the garden. I'll make the best garden ever. So she visited Rashtrapati Bhavan. She looked at the garden. She planted garden. She looked after it, nurtured it, and it kept winning awards every year. And then she got some acceptance. She moved in and went all the way to a CEO. And she is a brilliant coach, a mentor. And that's how I think it's just your attitude. It's your go-getting attitude. It's just believing in yourself and not thinking, oh, I don't have this, but looking at what I have. So what happens is when I come across such challenges, I go back and I self-coach. Okay, this is what they feel I don't have. Okay, what can I offer them? And then I go and present my case. As I'm sure a lot of us do. Being coaches, we've always been taught that self-coaching is the most important thing. So let me tell you a couple of challenges. And Vivek, please tell me if I go over time, because once I start telling stories, I can keep telling stories.
I'll give you a 8-minute reminder so you can wind up by 10.
All right.
Currently you're at 6:30. Thank you.
So currently I'm trying out a new coaching experience, which is a transition coach. So what does a transition coach do? People who have been displaced from their jobs, have lost their jobs, I coach them and help them towards finding a new job, not a recruitment agency, coaching, because it's a difficult time. And it always starts with the challenge, because here's a man and they're hunter-gatherers. Their whole being is defined by the work and how much they earn, them being the primary bread earners, and here they've lost their job and they're talking to a woman. It is difficult for them to start off. It is a challenge because they definitely don't want to accept to a woman that we are in this position, especially since they've not been there before. But I see that later, as we proceed with the conversation, being a woman coach has its advantages. The earlier people talked about the feminine energy. So let me ask you, what are the competencies required to be a coach? And then I'll ask you, do you know what the feminine energies are? And there's so much of a match. We are the nurturers. Look at all the teachers, the traditional roles of HR people, the traditional roles of teachers, the trainers, coaches, the transition. It has been women. So women, through our feminine energy, our active listening, being able to reflect empathy, listening to the body language, the intricacies, listening to what's not being said, encouraging them gently with questions to open up and to share, and making them feel so comfortable totally that it's all right to express. And we do go the extra mile. It is in us. What I call the Mother India syndrome, that never goes away from us. It's the Bharati Nari. It's a strength in some ways that we will encourage them, will accommodate for them and go the extra mile, wearing the coach's veil at all times. So yeah, starts with a disadvantage, but it's a great advantage being a woman coach, saying it twice, because of our feminine energies, which are most of the competencies that you need for coaching. Let me give you a beautiful analogy, because like everybody's been saying out here, we are incomplete without each other. This is not a competition. This is how we complement each other's traits. So I came across this lovely thing where they compared feminine energy to a flowing river, because feminine energy is free flowing. It's joyous. It's the dance, the movement, the song. It's like the river which flows, changes directions. And the masculine energy is like the river bank, solid there, holding it together. And that's how we go forward with this. It's a partnership, like everything is, and we need each other. So one last example where I came across a challenge. And one more advantage of being a woman coach is that, hey, men definitely, because we complement their strengths, they already have the industry expertise needed. So if they want a mentor, there are men. Coaches, women, because that's what you need to bring out all your barriers and your blocks and your creativity. But we are great as women coaches for women also. And I love it. I love having this advantage because women coaches, for women leaders, they always ask for women coach because we walk the talk, we have children, the house, the husband, and everything, multitasking, keeping the family connected and still, doing the balancing act. So win-win again. And the only time that I came across what I felt, I didn't realize it was a discrimination, but there was this HR person that I'd worked with in multiple organizations, and now he was at an organization where they wanted coaches. And since we had worked very well together, evolved and designed and implemented programs, I went to talk to him. I said, very excited, yes, 10 years experience or whatever level, ICF, etc. He said, Sonali, we feel, the people out here feel that we can't have a woman coach. And I said, why? So they said because they feel that the woman having somebody from the opposite sex will make it very difficult. There'll be a bond which is formed. There will be, things might be, like he didn't spell it out, but I could know where he's going. So instead of pulling out the woman card and screaming and shouting, I said, all right, fair enough. Let me give it a thought. Because this company was not a Lala company. This was a company which was known to be an equal opportunity company. And in fact, they said that if there are two people applying for the job and they're the same qualifications, we'll take people who are from the minority, be it sex, be it gender, gender and sex is the same. Vivek, give me 1 minute. Let me just finish this. Okay. And sorry, everybody. I went back, I self-coached, and I went back and I presented it in a way that how it is needed, how it makes for a great business cause, how it will affect the bottom line, and how you need, if you're going to encourage more women in the workplace and your entire senior management and CXO is male, you definitely need a woman coach. Otherwise, you're going to get women in an environment which they might find hostile. So to recruit, to engage them, to hire the best minority talent, you need a woman coach. I'm ending here now. I would love to talk to any of you all the time. It's a topic close to our heart. Thank you so much for the opportunity, everybody.
Thank you. So Sonali, I think your river and riverbank analogy got maximum votes. And very unique one that coaches well and coaches had. I think that was a unique one. I think I also found that interesting part. And hate to say the time reminder. Sorry, I also want this to go, but a few people have to leave on time. So yeah, so thank you for that.
I totally understand. Thank you.
Everybody, round of applause. Sonali, thank you so much. Let's welcome our next two speakers. Let me just put my gallery view and share my screen. Pradeep, Natarajan, hey, audience, just to let you know, I think all our speakers are doing 2 sessions this evening. So either they are doing a training program and coming here. Sonali did the same. She finished her earlier program and she's here. Same is with Pradeep. So for our session, they have managed their personal and professional commitment. Thank you all for that. Pradeep is founder of Viva Logic Consulting, a boutique management consulting organization. He's playing various roles: executive and leadership coach, business coach, and strategy consultant. He is a Marshall Goldsmith certified SCC leadership coach and currently working towards his ICF PCC. Today, Pradeep is going to talk on the art of feminine leadership. And I think he's going to share PPT as well. Pradeep, let me check if I've allowed people to share the screen. Yes, you can. Sure. You want to try that, Pradeep?
Yeah, I'll just try that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I'll put you on spotlight as well.
Perfect. I guess you all are able to see my screen now.
Yeah. Pradeep, do you want any time reminder? You're good with 10 minutes.
A little more than 10 minutes, 12 to 13, I think.
I'll give you a reminder at 10. Yeah, and then you wrap up in 12.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, go ahead.
So good evening, everybody. And it's my pleasure today to talk on the art of feminine leadership. Vivek has really thrown me a big challenge by making me discuss something as broad a topic as this in lesser than 10 to 15 minutes. And I hope I can give enough weightage and respect to the very art of feminine leadership through this presentation. So the whole art of feminine leadership. So when Vivek first spoke to me about and he asked all of us as to what do we want to really talk on, the first thing that flashed in front of me is the figure of Ardhanarishwar, which is nothing else but Lord Shiva's roop, which shows the equal blend of the masculine and the feminine, which represents the two most important and fundamental parts of creation, which is the Purusha and the Prakriti, which is the male and the female component of nature, and also illustrates as to how the Shakti, the female principle of God, is an inseparable part of the male and the female put together. So while it might appear that the art of feminine leadership is only about feminine, I would like to probably, try and sort the airs around this topic. So what exactly is the sacred feminine that we are talking here about? So the sacred feminine is the feminine force of creation that embodies the qualities of nurturing, receptivity, creativity, compassion, intuition, sensuality, inclusion, mystery, renewal, and last but not the least, unconditional love. Instead of remembering all these qualities, I guess if we have to look at one person who epitomizes this, it's our Divine Mother, who bring us into the world and are a living example of all these beautiful, sacred feminine nature. If it wasn't for them, would we exist? And the answer is no. And that's the entire fulcrum of feminine leadership. So what exactly feminine leadership means? So at first glance, it seems to mean women in leadership, which of course it can mean, but that's not the full meaning. The qualities of any great leader, whether it's a male or a female, as we have seen, have never been gender dependent. It's the individual strength and personality trait that really makes the leadership attributes, whether it's a male or a female. So what feminine leadership helps all gender people to do is to name, reclaim, and embody the qualities of the sacred feminine that we saw in the previous slide. So what exactly feminine leadership means? Feminine leadership is one that reconciles the inner and the outer world and connects the person with the whole. And how important is something like that in coaching? Because when we are talking about being a coach, I guess it's an equal amount of importance for us to understand both the inner and outer world, and then see how we connect to the world of the coachee, for example, and to their inner and outer world. Feminine leadership focuses also on a well-rounded and healthier approach to a business and community, as opposed to the command and control type of a center that mostly works on this is the way it should be done. And it's a very, very masculine way of doing, either do it or perish. Feminine qualities have been disallowed, as we know, and diminished and demonized in all aspects of the masculine dominated systems and structures. Whether it's, the beautiful saints who have been women, or many of the greatest healers who are called pagans and witches, it's always been disallowed and diminished. And that is exactly the place where there is a resurgence today of the feminine leadership model. And why is that coming so? It's mainly coming so because in the search for higher profits, creating more monetary value, and creating centers of power, which have been usually creating centers of power is usually been a masculine dominated system. In this whole process, what has happened is, to a great extent, each one of us, male or female, have forgotten the embodiment of feminine sacred, the sacred feminine that we have within us. And it's even through the COVID situation and the COVID-19, the way it affected, what did it actually try to show us? It tried to bring about all those aspects that we have forgotten, mainly the aspects of the sacred feminine, which is empathy, also different natures of how we have to nurture, be of help to another person, understanding another person, and not just work around for the sake of profits and power. So feminine leadership traits mainly include the important traits of empathy, tolerance, a long-term vision as opposed to a short-term vision. We couldn't have learned it better than our moms, because nurturing and carrying us for 9 months with just the beautiful hope of seeing the smile on the face when the child is born. Imagine the type of long-term vision. And what's the type of long-term vision a mother works towards when she nurtures this child and creates one of the world's best leaders out there? The world couldn't have been a better place without that long-term vision of the sacred feminine. Also, important qualities of vulnerability, sustainability, nurturing, and intuition. If we look at these qualities, like even open-mindedness, mindfulness, handling pressure, multitasking nature, open communication, aren't these the sacred feminine that we use in our coaching, which makes us a better coach or not so effective coach? And this is where we as coaches can use the art of feminine leadership inside us to nurture the sacred feminine inside us, and also balance it with the masculine within us to be effective towards ourselves and the people whom we touch in our life. So if you have to really look at how does feminine leadership empower, it empowers from the inside out to access and trust the internal intuitive part. You know, a while back, most of us have been working in corporate careers. If someone probably says in the boardroom or during a meeting, I have a hunch that this might not work, what do you think would it be his reply? Hey, we are not here to listen to your hunches. Talk me something that is tried, tested, and proven, and then we go ahead with it. And that's the way the sacred feminine, as an example, has been kept under the carpet or just washed off. So it's very important part of feminine leadership. What it espouses is trusting the inner intuitive power and bringing that to life. It's about activating both their compassion and the courage. Whoever felt that women are not courageous, I don't know what we can say. If they didn't have the courage, how would we as men have the courage? It takes a lot of courage to even nurture, to sustain, and to bring things to life and sustain it from there. Handling difficult situations and taking care of things. All this is about beautiful sustainability, and compassion and courage are required to nurture that. It's about moving out of burnout and overwhelm into focus and vitality. When we look at the sacred feminine and imbibing those qualities in us, it moves us out of the burnout and overwhelms and the overwhelm that we are facing today so much in every walk of our life. Whether it's the device and digital overwhelm that you're facing during the COVID thing, the economy going down, the uncertainty of things, the next tsunami, when it's going to come, climate change, all this is about just the neglect of the sacred feminine, which is coming to light and trying to remind us to look deep into ourselves and connect and get an access to that inner world and bring that to life. Illuminating and innovating new solutions and ways of working is a great part of the feminine leadership, which can be very, very useful for organizations and even with women leaders at the top. Be powerful presences and catalysts for change in ways that collaborate instead of dominate. I'm sure in our families and even in other situations, how many times it's the female who actually comes in and puts in the balance, douses the situation, and gets things into control. I guess the feminine aspect of that is very important in terms as a catalyst for change and collaborating and creating a very balanced present instead of just dominating, which is a lot more masculine. So coming to the last part of it, what a good feminine leader looks like and acts like. A feminine leader, whether it's he, she, or they often live or display these qualities. And the most important thing being taking responsibility for the feelings and emotional triggers. So it's not about keeping out your feelings and your emotions, but taking responsibility from the feelings and the emotions and then acting upon it. The second, listening to their feelings and intuition for guidance on what is or not, what is working or what is not working in any environment. That's where the sustainability and the future focus aspect comes into it, which can be very helpful for organizations and the society at large. Practice deep listening. How many of us have been talking about this and thinking about this? So we don't need to really discuss it because deep listening is very, very essential in order to bring out the best in us. Believe that vulnerability is not a shortcoming or a feeble trait. Believing that consciously expressing their feelings at work, whether it's on a conference call, in a boardroom, or even on a larger landscape of society, it's not weak. So vulnerability is not weak. And I think that is one of the biggest and the most important quality of even conscious leadership and authentic leadership today. Deeply believe in the interconnectedness of all things and that their choices affect everything else. So this is the holistic approach of a female or a feminine leader, sorry, not a female, but a feminine leader, which makes the difference of seeing things in a macro level and in an interconnected level instead of just putting them into silos. And wouldn't this help into the focus, visioning, and the growth of an organization? It surely would. Having strong empathy that keeps them connected and accountable to everyone around them. And that is what I think is the most important hallmarks of any effective leader. The accountability factor, the trust, and keeping them connected through empathy. Without empathy, I guess, it's like a stone without a life. You would be doing nothing at all. So these are what a good feminine leader would look like. It's a male or a female, it doesn't matter. It's all about imbibing these qualities into us that makes the difference. So let me conclude this with some questions for self-reflection to develop the art of feminine leadership. And for the past 20 years, I have been periodically asking these questions to me to remind myself, because to tell you frankly, I am very greatly influenced by Shiva and look up to him as a type of a guru, because the incidences what are there of Shiva is not feminine or masculine, but neutral, universal in nature. And these are the self-coaching questions that I have been working on and asking myself, which has tremendously helped me in my self-transformation too. The first one being, what does femininity mean to you? What does masculinity mean to you? What is true leadership for you? So this is not a question of leadership about finding out whether you want to be a leader, a manager, but how do you conduct yourself in life? How you lead your life is going to influence the people around them to probably look up to you or look down upon you. And is it going to be affecting them in a positive or a negative manner? What are the traits of an authentic leader? And ultimately, what is the kind of leader that you want to be? And I guess these questions is what would really help in the beautiful art of feminine leadership. Because if you really go to see, even balance is greatly a feminine attribute. And unless we are able to balance the masculine and the feminine elements inside us, You could call it Purusha and Prakriti. You could call it the yin and the yang. It's all about balance that is going to make us feel happy, powerful, and transformative in every moment of our life. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank you very much. I thank the GC for selecting such a beautiful topic and giving me an opportunity. And as a male coach, among all the beautiful female coaches who have been so gracious to share their wisdom today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you. Very well. People on the call, there are 4 things remaining, so hold on. We're going to have our last speech by Vinita. We'll take a team picture, and then we have a Q&A for all speakers. So all speakers, please hold on. All of us have, I think, good questions. And then we'll quickly tell you plan for next year, and then we'll say bye-bye. Yeah. I think by 6:45, max by 7, we should be out from here. Let me share my screen. All right. For the grand finale, we have our very own Vinita. I remember meeting Vinita. We used to meet in that Approve in the Gymkhana, and I remember Mangesh saying, "Oh, today we got 8 people, then we got 10, and the day we got 20 people, we felt like celebrating on." And yesterday, when we had a GC meeting, Kalpesh told we had a strong 160 people on WhatsApp. So, Vinita, we have moved along.
Amazing.
Once your busy schedule allows, please do join us. Currently, Vinita is serving as Senior Director and General Manager of India's COE of Dell Technologies. A brief introduction about Vinita. Let me just adjust my windows here. Head of Bangalore and Pune Centers of Dell EMC, active participant in ERGs and champion on inclusion and diversity. She herself is a leadership coach. Several certifications from Ahmedabad and Kolkata. ICF, Franklin Covey and others. Likes to do gardening, painting, and social work. What we have told Vinita is to bring the industry perspective of women in coach. While she herself is a coach, but how does the industry see her own experiences at Dell? So it's going to be mix and match, but I have requested her to keep 2 things in mind. One is women in coaching, and what does industry think about that, or industry perspective. Let me stop sharing. Vinita, again, all yours. Do you want a time reminder? We are okay with 10 minutes.
Yes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. All yours. And thank you so much for accepting our invite.
Oh, come on. Absolutely. And this is home ground. But thank you. And before I begin, I think I was a little insight on Dr. Natarajan's talk. I was just thinking of how much we're speaking about the feminine side of leadership, and we're obviously talking about people who have all genders, people who have more masculine side to themselves to explore their feminine side. And we know specifically in India, we've not raised boys and to explore their feminine side too much, or we've discouraged it. But I was thinking, as a woman, while as I was being raised, that wasn't a point, but when I went through my career, there was a lot of guidance in exploring my masculine side, right? And what we talk about, the whole alpha male. And again, thinking more on what you said, Pradeep, that, so much work has been done specifically to women who've made careers to explore their masculine side. And it'll be wonderful if we do the reverse now. And that's where we are going to bridge the gap on getting our own balances out. So thank you really on speaking about the feminine leadership part. Quickly on, like Vivek said, I'll be focusing on 2 areas. Overall, what's happening in organizations, my organization as well as others, the whole ecosystem, from experience to various industry connections. And second, on my individual observations, me as the coach, mentor, champion, and how I look at it and how it's changing and evolving as I work more and more with women. I'm going to use the word, since this is a forum of coaches, I understand that coaching, pure, mentorship, different, champion, different, right? So I'm going to be mixing the 2 up. I'm putting the disclaimer up front because we do a mix when we do it within the organizations. So most organizations, and this shouldn't be a surprise at all, a couple of you, I think Vivek's questions to Sushma were around this, are very focused on overall D&I. And while largely what appears externally is a number, right? Are we going from 10% to whatever percent? And a number is recruitment is what gets focused on. But there's a lot more happening internally. Everyone by now in so many years of work knows that just having a hiring target is not going to solve the problem. It has to be done, internal retention, growth, all of those aspects have to be thought about. And you as coaches would be seeing that organizations are doing a lot of work around this. So mentorship and coaching both are happening specifically for women at various levels, right? And various sections and subsections, if I may say, from a business unit perspective. And yet there's a feeling that there's not enough of it. And as an example, we have a very focused program for grads. We have a lot more for mid-level, high potential women, and some for senior leadership too. And then we do group programs and group coaching too. We do this at business unit level vertically, and some that cut across horizontally. But amongst all of this, the highest focus right now is on the mid-level, because that is the clear pipeline for senior positions, and that's where we have the thinner presence. It's improved a lot in the last few years, but that's still very, very thin. Entry level is not a problem at all, and it's a proper pyramid structure. We'll continue, we're just trying to make the top wider. This is also because, you know, we have very, very audacious goals around correcting the diversity overall, and rightly so. I should speak a little bit about goals. So gone are those days when we used to, you know, look at a 20% number and be happy about it. Most big brands in the company, Dell included, is having very audacious goals. So as an example, for our 2030 goal, and this is 2030, we still have 9 years to work on it. So it is an audacious goal. We know that we want to get to a 40% women in leadership positions and 50% overall. And we know when we wrote that down, that's very, very hard to get to. But if we don't set an audacious goal, we won't get there at all. So the entire organization is lined up for achieving that. It is not a recruitment only goal. Now, one clear change that has happened, right, back to the coaching space, one clear change that has happened is the number of people available for mentorship, right, for the mid to senior women. That band has become now more inclusive. And here's what I mean. Unfortunately, till just a few years back, if a senior woman, and I know my own story, if a senior woman wanted a mentor or a coach or a champion within the organization or a partner organization, similar ecosystem organization, most of them were super busy, right? If there would usually be like a 1 or a 2 person women who would be senior to me, or sometimes none. And if I approach a senior woman outside in a different organization, the chances of me getting her time were even less, because there was so much that they had to do, right? They were few to none first. Then they have to do a lot of work in representing. They have to first do well at their job in a largely male-dominated place. They have to do a lot of work to even stay there. Growth is another aspect. They have to represent the organization outside as one of the few or only senior women leaders. And they also usually have the responsibility to run the women's network or the employee resource group internally and be the overall role model. That was too much to expect with an already thin 5% or less than that population on top. And also till a few years back, women's network was largely run by women. Only now it's changing. So in short, too much pressure, and they just couldn't be the role models or the mentors for more women, and that affected the mid-level pipeline largely. Now that has changed. I mean, I've lived through that transition. I've seen that change in my career on how much that has changed. It's a welcome change due to the efforts put in the last few years. And we thankfully have now more women in exec and senior leadership positions, although they're still less. But the factor that's changed drastically is not the number of women on senior positions. What's changed is now that the entire leadership team has become the champion for this goal that has been set by the organization. And there is no other choice than being the mentor, coach, champion for men too, right? In fact, when we talk about our moonshot goals, which is, we call them the moonshot goals, our 2030 goals, I've seen it best described by men in the organization, not just talking about it, but walking it, right? And they are investing their time, because any leader in the company, man or woman or any other gender, if they want to be successful, they cannot be away from the company's goal. So this goal has become a shared goal. And again, if I look through just my last few years before I get into the coaching, individual coaching aspects of it, I didn't have enough champions, right? I had to network a lot to even find a few champions, and I had to bend myself backwards to find my mentors, because it wasn't happening automatically. And that has literally changed now to a 180 degrees, where leaders are invested in me, and I know that they're invested in my career. They come back and tell me about it. They come back and tell me how they want me to grow in the organization. And that is such a pleasant surprise. I call it all a karma, right? You know, that we don't have to bend backwards so much to just find a champion within the organization. So it's gone from a completely unshadowed and lonely territory to a very nurturing environment. And I don't know if this maps to your observations working with women leaders in organizations like ours and others, right? So hopefully you're seeing the change, and I'd love to know that in the chat, if you're seeing the change that I just described, that's happening. So to summarize my first point, it's a beautiful world for women in organization from a mentorship, coaching, champions perspective, and there is lots of efforts being made, but it still feels less due to the wide gap that existed just a few years back. Moving on to the second part of the talk that I wanted to do, and Vivek and me spoke about this a little bit, my individual experience as a coach as well as a coachee, right? So if I reflect on who I am mentoring right now and within the organization, I largely mentor within the organization now. I mentor more women than men. Part of it is because of a higher investment in women within the organization. But beyond that, I'm personally enjoying that more, right? I'm personally enjoying mentoring women much more as I'm doing more of that also. And while doing that, there was a lot of shift that have happened in my own mind, right? And my own journey of mentoring. And I'll speak about what shifts that are happening, but not that enjoying it more. I'm also gaining a lot of satisfaction. I'm also learning a lot. My own empathy has increased so much in working with women, and just seeing the shift when you work with a woman in your organization and you see the shift so fast because of the whole ecosystem support that's coming in. It's very, very satisfying, and it just keeps building. I'm also gaining a lot from other women in the organization who I reach out to for mentoring me. So I have like my own mentors right now. At least at any point of time, I have 2 mentors within the organization, and I categorically go to one man and one woman as my own mentor for the diversity of thought that they bring in and what they bring into the table. Very close to almost all the speakers spoke about the different energies people bring in, so that balance of having 2 coaches has worked very well for me. And look, we've spoken a lot on this in the last few minutes about, you know, the angle of a coach being a man or a woman coach, but the last session I think completely was spot on the femininity part of it. So for some time, let's focus away from the coach to the coachee, right? And let's talk only about women coachees for a few minutes. So one clear thing, and I hope all of you empathize with that, is that most women have lived more complicated lives. And I want to be clear that I said most and not all. This is in line with some parts of what Latha and other speakers, before me said. More responsibilities, more expectations, biologically more complex, right? More hormonal changes, and more resilient, like Sonali said. And well, we know that a web is more complicated than a ladder. So this is where the coaching also gets more complicated. And this room is full of experienced coaches who know that empathy is at the base of coaching. Pradeep, you spoke about empathy. And empathy has become a very fashionable term now in organizations also and overall. But empathy is deep. It doesn't come very easily. But once it does, that's where the connection and the trust, and that just opens up a whole different dimension that a coach and coachee can dance in. That's really where the magic lies. And we know that empathy is about walking literally in the other person's shoes. And some of these aspects, if you just think about it, about empathizing with a woman's life by someone who's not lived a woman's life, it is hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. But some aspects of this are best understood by a woman because we've lived as a woman's life. I know of a very few, very few men who have done deep study on the various stages of women's lives, the changes in their body. I mean, so many of you are married over here, right? How many husbands literally understand the hormonal changes of a woman? It takes deep empathy even to understand that. What that manifests in, it could be different for me, it could be different for another woman, right? So it's not that simple. Even for a woman to understand, it's not simple. But the moment you put a little blank card on it, and I use this for a lot of my direct reports, I'm more empathetic for women if they write a very shitty email someday, and I just in my mind say, let it go, once, twice, and then I speak about it. But I'm extra empathetic because I know that there could be a few more complexities that I don't understand. If it's a pattern, it's a different thing, but more kinder on that. Now, I don't know how many men will look at it from that viewpoint. Very few again, right? Also women like me, and I've lived that life, we've been boxed in categories like strong, aggressive. The maximum feedback I've got throughout is be more strong, be more aggressive. And look, that's not my natural style. My femininity is very high, and the aspects of their feminine leadership aren't spoken of. In fact, whatever success I've got in corporate is largely because of my feminine leadership, not by being aggressive or strong. But the feedback was exactly the reverse. So, but now that's changing, and that's why I'm very happy about the time we are in. We have more leaders who are not scared to show their feminine energy, their vulnerability. Pradeep, again, you spoke about vulnerability, and I was like dancing in my head because I'm a huge proponent of how much courage you need for vulnerability and all of the aspects of being a woman. We still have a long way to go, and I think I'm over on time. How are we, Vivek? I can wrap it up here.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. Then I'll just wrap it up, and I'll wrap it up by saying we really need both on the table. But if we can build a world where all coaches work on their lesser part, right? Whether it's a masculinity or the femininity, I think this discussion that we did today sort of will go away. But it's a long way to go. The best service we can do is to build a balanced world for the next few generations. So as we raise our kids, if we can have them explore it right from the beginning, we'll have lesser work to do in future. Thank you so much.
Wow. I think we're just going deeper and deeper with every speaker. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, come on camera and let's give a big round of applause to all speakers. Yeah, very well. I think a lot of you adjusted your personal commitments, professional commitments, I know, to make it to the ICF Pune Chapter event. So really, thank you so much on behalf of all of us. Aniruddha has a request. We all come on camera and we'll take a team picture. It goes on our global LinkedIn page. Yes. Aniruddha, can you take a picture, please?
Yes, I'm just waiting for
people to come on camera. Sunil, Shweta. If you all
Sadhana,
Rahul, yes, and Anuradha, if you could come on camera, please.
Tell us when you're clicking, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, then will.
Anuradha, anyway, take 2, 3. We'll put the good one.
I'll take multiple clicks so that the best we can publish.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sadhana and Anuradha. Okay.
Done?
Perfect. Okay, just a minute. I'll just count. 1, 2, 3, click.
Thank you so much, Aniruddha.
Thank you.
Super duper. If we have some time, if speakers are okay, are you okay to take few questions, please? Speakers, I know I told you 90 minutes, but now we're on public demand since you spoke so much and you studied so much. Yeah. So audience, please unmute, and either you want to say thank you to speakers or you want to ask any questions, please ask. Let's be brief. I'm really conscious of the time since I committed 90 minutes to everybody. Yeah. People, questions, please.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please, Krishna.
Vijayendran this time. Yeah, this is, just suggestion to Vinita. Why that figure is 40% being a long-term goal, I think it should be 50%.
So it is 50% women, 40% women in leadership.
Yeah, that's okay. But why can't it be 50%?
We'd love to. It's going to be hard. That's it. We are at a 10%.
Yeah, but
it's about
since it is a long-term goal, I think you should keep 50%. At least we reach 40%.
No, I want to clarify that. See, even to get to 50% women's strength, by the way, just strength, women. And when we say leaders, right, we are a tech company. Our leadership strength is as it is lesser. So even between men and women, right, overall our leadership pipeline is a little narrow. We have more tech people and more individual contributors. So that is where the parity is super, super important. When it comes to leadership, even a 40%, by the way, kid you not, it makes me nervous every time I think about it. 58 leadership, maybe the next 10 years, but it's a long way to go. Even this looks very unrealistic. So it's easy to put it on paper, but we have to implement it too. It's still much larger than the industry numbers, by the way.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question. This is Vivek.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Vinita. How are you?
Hi. I was just like so happy.
Long time.
I know.
And we are missing you very much in the chat.
I'll come by someday.
Okay, so the Vinita, and this is also the question is also to Pradeep. Pradeep, my congratulations to you for a very deeper engagement that you have spoken today. It's wonderful, absolutely. Now, Vinita, you emphasized a lot on the empathy aspect, right? And I agree that empathy muscle in the organization has to be really very, very strong. What are you as an organization leader trying to do in the organization so that people become more empathetic when they're interacting with human beings in the organization? After all, it's all data collection, information collection, and unless you have empathy, you will not be able to do that. Right.
Yeah, I'd love to offline give you a longish answer on this one because the work that we're doing on this area is quite deep. So we're working a lot on inclusion, right? Diversity is one part, the inclusion part is harder. And we actually go through, it's a mandatory thing every year to go through an inclusion workshop. And I haven't seen anybody coming out of the inclusion workshop, not just men, women too, without uncovering one more unconscious bias. And that is where, we are working on largely. Speaking about empathy, again, a lot of work gets done internally, but it's largely lessons in leadership. A lot of work gets done on vulnerability. It's almost becoming a value in the organization, being vulnerable. Leaders talk about it, especially now in this digital world where everyone's connected. We actually need a higher empathy. So it's almost becoming a language. But we are a 150,000 people company, right? Yeah. It's not going to be easy to move such a large organization on this. There'll always be people who are not going to buy in this, who are going to say, no, this is not working. And that's why the journey is so much more longer. But very specific programs, and I'd love to tell you about MARC, which is our inclusion program.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take one more last question. Anybody? Speakers are also allowed
may
to
I
ask
a question to Vinita?
Yes, Sonali, go ahead.
Vinita, thank you so much. It's very heartening to hear from an industry expert. This is going to be a longish answer, so maybe we could catch up some other time. But the most difficult thing is onboarding the senior management, really getting the buy-in, not as a tick mark. And you seem to have managed that as a company. And I've done this massive work with Barclays for a year, and it just fizzled away after all the efforts. So I would want to know in details what is it that you did, because it seems like an impossible task to many organizations. It seems like a pipe dream.
Yeah, no, I'll answer it in very short, Sonali. So Michael Dell is the D&I champion of Dell Technologies. Starts from there. So that changed everything, right? It's a talk in every conversation. It's not like left to leaders. It's not even a choice. But what that does is, it's coming well from top, but we have more work to be done at the bottom. And I still hear, like just about 2 years back, I heard one of the male managers come and talk to me saying, I'm feeling a reverse bias. So we have work to be done on the ground level such that men are a part of the conversation and not feeling excluded. So more work is going on the ground level versus the leader level. It just came from Michael Dell, and I think it's a cultural thing. It's a part of our, we have something called a strategy cascade every year. It's one of the pillars of our strategy cascade.
Awesome. Thank you. So before we say bye-bye, I sincerely want to thank all the speakers for their time, passion, commitment, and really sparing time. Having 6 speakers for a session, initially when we conceived the program, we were wondering whether it's possible or not. And we also wanted to make it exclusive, give opportunity to our own members. And there's also a plan next year we want to do that. While GC has a plan, we will come back to you, members, listening to you. What exactly would you like to do? Jayashree, on a side note, I think whatever the speakers spoke today could be a small curriculum on how to coach a women leaders. Right? I think ICF doesn't have that as a competency, right? I think I was listening saying, oh, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this. So many answers and so much to do. Do you have any final comment, Jayashree, before we say bye-bye?
No, actually, just 2 things for all our members. One is the ICW, the International Coaching Week is coming up very soon. So please watch out for the announcement and volunteer. This time it's going to be a global platform. So the session that we will create will be watched by everybody across the world. So brace up for that. Second, and Vivek, I'm taking your permission to make an announcement, which we would officially make any which way next month, is we are co-opting Sushma Kulkarni as our GC member. And so a big round of applause and welcome Anirudh. All of you have known Anirudh as a selfless, amazing volunteer any which way. And he keeps saying he did not do it with an intention to be on the GC, and I completely agree. So he's joining us as director special events. So welcome, Anirudh. And yeah, and thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.